Ginny and AJ would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land across the countries now known as Australia and the United States of America. These lands that were never ceded but violently stolen from the oldest living cultures and civilization on this planet. We would also like to pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, for they hold the memories, traditions, culture, and hopes of a brighter future for us all. It's also important that we acknowledge the Gumbaynggirr, Barkinji, Lachi Lachi, Birigubba, and Waka Waka ancestors and elders of our bloodlines, whose shoulders we stand on. Without them, we do not exist. It's through them that we carry our pride, strength, and resiliency. We must always remember that under this concrete and asphalt, these countries were and always will be on traditional Aboriginal, Australian, and Native American land.
Hello everybody, welcome back for another episode of Unapologetically Black. We are so excited to be here. We have an amazing guest, which is a literal Australian legend, living legend, Troy Cassar Daley. But we are super excited and honoured to be able to do this because this is our first ever guest as such. And it's so important, you know, with our line of work that we're able to touch base with other Indigenous people and have conversations and discuss topics that, again, have been put in the too hard basket. For us as hosts of this podcast, we're constantly pushing the envelope to be able to interview someone that's comfortable and confident enough to do that in their line of work and with their artistry is so inspiring. So, Ginny, how are you feeling about our guest today, Troy Cassar Daley?
Listen, I'm trying not to fangirl too much. Like, I literally feel, you know, I was okay up until probably like 2 hours ago. And I was thinking like, oh my God, we are literally going to talk to Troy Cassar Daley. And you mum, growing up in Queensland.
Let him have it.
Growing up in Queensland, you know, I think I've met him once before, but like,
wow.
I didn't meet him. You see, here I go, start claiming already. I didn't meet him, but we were in the same vicinity, and I was like, oh my God, that's Troy Cassar Daley. And like I said, growing up in Queensland, this fella is major. And I mean, AJ, this is our first like real guest.
I know. And it's been a long yard, guys. Like, we were just yarding earlier. We're coming up to like our 8th month now. We're not even at 1 year yet. So we are just so grateful for this interview, but also so grateful for all your guys' support and encouragement to feel confident and comfortable enough to have these conversations. And in this interview, that's what we want to do. That is our hopes. And with a lot of Troy's work in this new album is encouraging people to talk about different topics that we may not in mainstream society, or we just may not feel comfortable enough to do so.
Yeah. I mean, this is major for us. Like, and I'm going to try really hard not to ruin like this whole interview because I mean,
I know
it's Troy Cassar Daley, and he's been such a pillar of for our community. I think like such a pillar in terms of like music. If you thought about like when he started singing, like what a different time it was for black fellas as well. And he's just gone from strength to strength. I think you know, I have really fond memories of listening to Troy Cassar Daley music in my household, especially like being a Knox and having those, you know, my uncle's always singing like, you guys, this is major for me. If there was anyone, it's going to be him. But absolutely, this newest album, it's called The World Today. It's released right now, so you can go and stream that on Spotify, on iTunes, or anywhere you stream music, or download it, buy it, even better. This is, you know, black music. We should be paying for it. So make sure you download and pay for this. I'm going to do it as soon as I get off here. But I just think, this new album is really, really, I know it's important to him. we read a little bit of a brief about the album, and it touches on lots of different really serious topics. And I think like Troy, this is going to be his most personal album ever. I'm so grateful and pleased that he's chosen us to come and have a yarn as well. So I don't know about you, AJ, but I'm like low key trying not to throw up at the moment.
Oh, I know, guys, it's so nerve-wracking. And when you're listening today, as always with Unapologetically Black, really delve into the conversations and reflect and connect them to your own personal lives. So without further ado, sit back and let's get into this yarn with none other than Troy Cassar Daley. We have an amazing, legendary guest, which we're absolutely honored to have, which is Troy Cassar Daley. How are we going? How are you feeling, Troy?
I'm very well, Alicia, and good to be here. And like I say, sorry about the growth. When there's no gigs, you end up just going back to being feral again, and it's just a good feeling and very liberating not to have to shave.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And how are you going, Ginny? How are you feeling today about today's interview?
I'm good. We were just saying fangirling over Troy. I'm gonna try and be normal though.
We're just gonna try and find it. I'm just gonna be grinning from ear to ear this whole bloody episode.
Stop. Okay.
Awesome.
So Troy, where are you now?
Well, I'm actually at home in Brisbane now, and I've got about a month off now. My wife's got to have some surgery, so I want to make sure I'm home for that. And I sort of just more about our capacities are all a bit weird up here in Queensland, so there's not a lot of shows, just odd ones here and then until it comes back to normal. But I suppose, when you first release a record, you get very itchy around the ring to go and work.
Yeah.
When you don't have the capacities, you're best to wait until it all comes back to normal. And obviously want to be here for my wife as well. So I want to make sure she's all right and get out of what she's got to get out of the woods on. So yeah, Brisbane's good. And, like I say, I got my kids around me, and it's just nice to be able to actually reconnect with them with more time.
Deadly. Well, I guess that's been like the most people have been saying, although obviously COVID's been really horrible for a lot of us, that has been a highlight, that we've been able to sit at home and, well, not just sit at home, but have better relationships with our family, spend time. So I'm glad to hear that you've been able to do that. So I wanted to ask a question more about your early years, I guess. Growing up in Queensland myself, I'm a Brisbane girl, and Troy Cassar Daley is a huge one for me. I'm a Knox, and so at our Christmas parties, a lot of Troy Cassar Daley was being played. Not that great, but they gave it a good shot. So I wanted to ask you, what was the role of music in your early life? Like how important was music growing up for you and your family?
Look, I think music was probably the most important part of our family's connection. My mum and dad broke up when I was very, very young. So I was born in Sydney. Mum took me back up to Grafton where I did a lot of my growing up, and we ended up living with my grandparents. So my grandparents had a radiogram, and I'm really showing my age now, but a record player in the house was like a big deal to Goori people.
I bet.
And it was the source of much inspiration for a lot of us, because what we did in turn was, I suppose, listen to Merle Haggard and Charlie Pride, and the sadder the songs, the better for me. I don't know, I'm still like that. I just love sad songs, and they're probably the easiest to write. And Nan and Pop were what I call cycle breakers in our community. They worked very, very hard, and they had a little rental home from the railway union, and it was an Indigenous rental house. And they were able to turn it around so that my pop ended up buying it off the Indigenous housing mob.
Wow.
So it was, that they were a big inspiration to me, and that music that was played is an inspiration for all our cousins. Our first cousins, we all went to the same guitar teacher then, and that's how it all started to roll, I think, for me and all of us. We still sit around fires and sing it and play guitars just like you would have, Ginny.
Yes. Literally, that's all we would do. And it would just go on for hours and hours. And it would be fun for like the first 3, and then, 7 hours later, it's like, all right, Mom, let's calm down.
I know.
I know.
He said, I know. You mentioned Charlie Pride. Who inspired you musically? Like, is there a particular artists or bands that you really thought, that's what I want to emulate, that's what I want to be like? Or...
Well, yeah, I think when we started playing guitar, we were learning a lot of the stuff that our family liked in the first place, and whether that was Creedence Clearwater or Eagles as well. But it was sort of like it was your typical Gurry playlist. If I was to put together a playlist right now, and then you put the John Fogerty went on and did that album with he just by himself with all those old spiritual covers and that, the Blue Ridge Rangers. And if I had $1 for every time I heard the Blue Ridge Rangers played at one of my auntie's houses, and then it drifted into Bob Marley, obviously, because Bob, I think to me, I mean, if there was a man that was said he was very much like Jesus, who had come and touched people in a way, don't matter what color you are, Bob Marley would be that fella for me. He was like a Rastafarian Jesus to me, and
for sure.
And so we listened a lot to his music before we went out on the town and had a few charges at our house and stuff like that, and we all went out on the town and had a good time. But they were the starts of a lot of parties for us, was a lot of that old music,
I love that.
So we have both listened to Back on Country, and we absolutely love it. And I'm a country girl at heart, and in that song, so much of it was just so symbolic for that connection to land. But the thing we really loved about it was encouraging non-Indigenous folk as well to feel connected to country and from their own experiences. So are you able to explain to us a bit how or the importance behind that song and how you feel when you sing it, trying to encourage non-Indigenous people and Indigenous people to come together?
Yeah, AJ, it wasn't a conscious decision to broaden it that much. It started out, I was very, very homesick and very down. And it's probably the first time I've ever experienced any sort of mild depression. And I think it was, I'd lost my dad. I didn't really grieve properly. I took it out on my wife a bit. And I think that we had troubles then as well during COVID. And so I went home when the bubble opened to go to Grafton, so I could actually go back to where we used to go camping as kids. I went back particularly to see my mum and my aunties, but I actually went back first of all to drive up to that spot and to put my feet in the water and just to hang there for a couple of hours before I went and saw mum. And I started to write the song in my head as I drove out of that place. And then I was fishing with a mate of mine up in Moreton Bay, and he was telling me about a young non-Indigenous fellow who's a surfer who had a beautiful tattoo of his favourite surf spot on his ankle. And he asked him why he put that on there. And he said, well, I feel like I'm a custodian of that place, because every time I go there, I pick up rubbish or I jar up people who are leaving stuff there.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, it's a broader song now. If I can put that in there and talk about young people that are non-Indigenous to go out camping and get that same feeling of
so true.
It will make us all look after country instead of it just being a Gurry job,
So true. It's profound. And that leads us into the next question was you also have another song called Parole and Doing Time. So that is a lot, as you know, happening politically and socially for us as First Nations people. What inspired this song? And again, the sense of bravery to have that, because as we all know, Australia can be quite delayed and back away from these issues and conversations, such as the environment, which was discussed in Back on Country. I was about to say Black on Country.
Black on Country. I think you just rewrote the song, AJ.
Stop it, go away.
She just did the remix. The Black on Country.
I won't tell Briggs that. My God, Briggs will want to do a remix now.
No, I'm sure he would. I'm sure he bloody would. But yeah, what inspired Parole and Doing Time? Because again, this is going to resonate with so many First Nations people, and if you can talk a bit about the inspiration, but also the bravery to put that on your album.
Yeah. Oh, look, I wouldn't say it's brave. I suppose I think it's just a conversation that has to happen, AJ. At the same time, I was home healing. I went back on one of our men's camps we have each year, and we only did it because we had a cousin who was passing away from cancer. So we decided we'd bundle everyone up from our first cousins to our oldest uncles that we had, and bring them up on country again. We can sit around the fire like we used to and start something that should be happening all the time. And while we were up there, I spoke to my first cousins. Two of them out of the big mob of people there had been incarcerated, and they had stories about it. They had stories about parole. They had stories about telling the best story you can to get out of there to the parole board. And then, so 3 out of our family have been through the system. Unfortunately, my uncle, who's not with us now, he was the first one to go through. And I thought it was a conversation. Like many things, we have to actually start bigger conversations I've watched people like Midnight Oil go a hard line as well and start big yarns about things with songs like Beds Are Burning and Dead Heart.
Yeah.
And so I figured it's time to talk about incarceration rates, to talk about the fact that Goori people are overrepresented in jails. And those songs, I think, just touch on that in a way that hopefully will make the listener who hasn't experienced that or had that as part of their family, will open up their mind a bit to what it does to you and what it turns you into. And the tag and the stain that comes with being incarcerated, that follows you into community. And it's very hard to get on with your life. And simple things like just getting your license or trying to find somewhere to rent and having your parole officer checking you out all the time. My cousin said he felt like I was still in jail, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
For sure.
So powerful. And speaking of mobbing community, a lot of people, I'm sure, as you know, are inspired by your music and by your story. And a lot of there's a lot of First Nation talent out there. So there's a lot of black fellas that are performing and singing with their families or maybe just within their home. But what would your advice be for Indigenous artists that want to kind of get out there and have the confidence to enter the music industry, but also some advice for those that already might be in there and want to push their careers forward? What would some advice be?
Look, I would say find your story. I think we all have an interesting story. I've really used, I suppose, a lot of my growing up and a lot of my family history as part of who I am as an artist. And I think a lot of these young kids don't realise, and some of the older fellas who've been around for a while too might be just discovering on a journey that their elders still have this incredible knowledge that unless they go and gain some of that from them by sitting down and yarning with them, it's going to be lost when we lose them, unfortunately. So I've sort of made a point, even at 50 years old, to go and keep talking to my elders, keep talking to my mother. I've got one uncle left out of my mum's family that I draw on quite a bit too at our men's camp. And I think, just find your story in amongst your own family, because there will be interesting stuff. A lot of the old people might want to not talk about it because they're a bit cagey about who was father of who or something.
Yeah.
But you got to sit down and look, just find the truth. But also I found a story, like I say, about my first uncle, my oldest uncle that was incarcerated, and the story that was behind that. I told Paul Kelly that story. That story turned into a song called Lonesome But Free, So dig deep, look at what makes you unique to the rest of the mob that's out there while you're running your own race. And I think you'll find something pretty interesting,
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
incredible.
I have a quick question. We know that you recorded this particular album during COVID. How different was that creative process? And I know you touched on the death of your father and having some marital stuff happening in the background. Like, how different was that creative process from how you would normally put together an album?
Ginny, I think this one was probably the easiest to write for a lot of reasons, because first of all, I had big emotional draw on my heart from a lot of angles. And like I say, this will be a lot darker album than people will expect from me probably, which is a good thing, because it tells about the truth of struggle. And I was struggling, but where I'm sitting down here, I mean, it looks pretty messy back there, but this is just a bit of a storeroom thing where you come to leave stuff. But there was always, during COVID, there was always this here, and I got my dog at my feet here, and I was sort of running away from things a little bit while I wrote this record. And, that was not the best thing to do. I had to you got to go up and face upstairs and work things out with your wife and bond with your kids again. But I was also down here as part of my grieving. I think I was sort of channeling what I was feeling for my dad at the same time. And then there was all the family history that I wanted to cover off on as well. So it was the easiest record I think I've ever written. It was the hardest in regards to being honest with yourself.
Right.
Because I honestly did look at myself every couple of days as that beard got longer. And as the days seemed like they were dragging on forever, I used the time for one thing only, and that was to be creative. And that's one thing COVID couldn't take away from us.
Right.
Wow.
That's so
powerful.
Special. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know.
Look, it's about time that you talk about it. You can't sort of sugarcoat stuff too much. That's one thing I don't think I had to do with this record, was try and make anything look sweeter than it really was, because it's just all honesty.
Yeah.
And there are songs on there about, my dad unfortunately took his own life, so I had a lot of questions,
Oh,
and a lot of things that kept coming back, and what could I have done different, and was it me not being there for him, was it my brother? You question yourself a lot, but thankfully I found a lot of the answers at the river when I went home. And Jenny, obviously being on the other side of the world, I know what it's like when I lived in Nashville, how homesick I was just for a smell.
Right.
A smell of something that made me feel like I belonged somewhere.
Literally.
So yeah, it was a big old journey, but it was worth taking for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as blackfellas, sometimes we get caught up in like unhealthy reactions to a lot of life situations, unfortunately, because from our post-traumatic whatever intergenerational trauma that happens. But I love that you were able to move through that in a way that like coming out the other side now, and I'm sure that's probably not all the way out, because there's it sounds like a lot's been going on, but that you can sit here and speak your truth is so deadly. It's so lovely to see, like
No, thank you. No, look, it felt like I was carrying a bag of rocks for a fair while, but as I got through the other side, I felt it getting lighter. And that's probably the best way to feel, because it was an emotional baggage that I was carrying, I suppose. And I think it's important for men in particular to talk. Women, they're able to go out and have a couple of wines and let it out, but whereas men, they sort of they just don't talk. I mean, even trying to extract stuff out of my cousins sometimes. And there's some hard men amongst my cousins. They're really lovely people, and they've been through some really heavy stuff and seen some heavy stuff. And for them to yarn about it, it takes a lot of encouraging. It takes a lot of us all sitting around and saying, hey, look, we don't have to be embarrassed. We're here together as men. If we feel like we need to have a howl, we can do it on our own country, where we belong. What better place could you do it? While we're singing and that as well, we're also crying,
Oh, so deadly. And it's so important too, because like AJ and I often have yarns about, I mean, we're two Indigenous women who get on here and just sort of go for it about lots and we feel, in a way liberated to be having lots of these conversations, but we understand as well the importance of having these conversations so that other mob feel comfortable having conversations. If we sort of put our foot out and look silly doing it first, then maybe everyone starts to get comfortable. But I mean, the fact that we know as well as Indigenous women, my uncles are some of the hardest people I've ever to get to know that I've ever met in my life. I couldn't tell you their favorite color, I couldn't tell you their favorite number, I don't remember their birthdays, but I know their favorite songs. I know what songs they sing when it's Christmas time and they've got a guitar in their hands. And I just think so deadly to see you come and talk about this as well, about stuff that other black fellas gone through.
Straight back as you two as well. I mean, for young women to be able to start conversations like this is pretty vital, because what we're trying to do in this role here is educate non-Indigenous people. Can you imagine what your uncles have seen though, Jenny, to get that hard?
So true.
I can only imagine.
They've had things go on in their lives that have hardened them to the point where they just don't open up to anybody, not even their own mob. And so we have to start these yarns. I did 6 shows with Midnight Oil back in February, April. And the one interesting thing about them is when you're on stage and you're singing Beds Are Burning, the message is just as strong today as what it was back when they first released that song. And so what it made me realize was that there's still a lot to do.
So true.
So much more work to be done. For sure. Are there any other Indigenous artists right now that you're excited about following? Like we've just seen, I think in the last year, like it feels like the Indigenous music industry is starting to get really on, like burning. Is there anyone that you're looking at right now and following, or can you put us onto some deadly people so that we?
Look, I don't think I know any other the ones that you know. I mean, when I was watching young Emily Warramurra, I see a young woman who is probably the closest thing I've seen to my grandmother.
Wow.
And a young version. And my grandmother was very, very strong. She was caring, but she was staunch. And I think that you see these qualities come through every now and then. She's not taking the meek and mild thing of, oh, okay, well, I'll just put up with it. If there's some body shaming or slut shaming, whatever that people do online, she calls it out.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same as our sporting people like Latrell Mitchell and people like that. When they hear something that is said off the field, they call it. And I think it's time, I suppose, to be honest about if you do hear something. Same with AFL, you know, the way little Eddie Betts, you wouldn't find a nicer man than Eddie Betts. And to have people vilify him, I think these young artists that are coming through, young Alice Skye was on the road with us, and Tasman Keith, a young rapper that came along. And they were people that I sort of watched like an older an uncle now, and just take care of what they're up to, and if they ever come to me for advice. I mean, you know, I think Dan Sultan's one of the best singers we've got in Australia. And it'll take time for him to find the songs that speak truly from his heart. Like he's already got some that really resonate with me, but it won't be long before our whole nation and possibly the world can hear about Dan. And he's had his own battles too, and he's been a great role model for the younger generation to go, there is another side to all the shit that people go through. There is another side, you know, there is a way out. And people like Dan Sultan, and you see a lot of them who had different sorts of drama in their life, they can show a way out by showing a bit of light.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, we're going to get into it. You're our first real guest that we've ever had on the show. And, you know,
really?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Look, but we also, I mean, we wanted to get to know you. I've been watching when we were told that you were going to come on the show. Obviously, super excited about. I watched a lot of different interviews of you, and I wanted to make sure that you had fun on this one. And I know it's early Monday morning, but I have some hot seat questions, some random questions, just 10. And just quick answers, whatever comes to mind, that's good.
Don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it. Yeah. Okay. So where is home for you? What's home?
Oh God, that's even tough. Look, home is obviously wherever my family is home.
Love that. Okay. Where's been your favorite place to visit?
A place called Owenpelly. It's called Gumbaynggirr. That's a traditional name. I was introduced up there 30 years ago to the people, and I still love going back.
Oh, Delhi. Okay. Well, what's your words to live by? Is there a favorite quote or something that you sort of has stuck with you?
Yeah. Be nice.
Be nice.
It can't be anything. Just be nice to people. There's no sense of being nasty.
Yes, I love that. Okay. If you weren't singing, Troy, what do you think you would be doing for work?
Oh, look, I'd like to just help youth. I'd probably be some sort of a youth worker or something like that. I've always really taken a lot of pride in trying to help people get a leg up every now and then, just to get on a better path, you know.
Deadly. If you could have 3 people over for dinner, who would you have?
Oh,
anyone.
I'd love to have a yarn to Barack Obama. I think I don't know, he just fascinates me. So does his wife. They just fascinate me a lot. So that'd be 2. And then one other person, I suppose, I really would have loved to have had a sit down and a feed with someone like Merle Haggard, because when we toured with him over here, we got to know him pretty well. But any conversation was inspiring, you know. So someone like him, I'd love to hear what him and Obama would say to each other. It's pretty interesting.
Sure.
Well, and you too, and you in there.
I'm
pretty interesting.
Well, you know, I'd be asking plenty of questions. I'd be annoying both of them.
What's your favorite movie, Troy? Or something you watch?
Color Purple. Color Purple.
I love that movie.
Number one.
Okay. Have you picked up any new hobbies or interests during COVID? Anything that you started doing differently?
Yeah, look, I've always painted, and, you know, only as a sideline and mucking around, because Mum is an artist as well. So I think I took painting up a lot more seriously because I had more time. And I just love, I love tracing out rivers of where I've been and talking to people back home. Like, I'll take a photo from the sky on the plane, and if I take a photo of a river, I take that and I try and blow it up and make sure that's the main part of my painting, because I just love rivers.
You post it online?
Some of them I have, yeah.
Okay.
And
awesome.
One of them I've just done about the Arara River, where I went and sat the last time I was home, and I'm just about to donate that to that support act mob who look after people in the music industry who don't have any work, who's suffering from sickness and stuff. And so I've got that ready. I've got that ready to send down. And it's basically the Urara River, and crossing over it every time I go there, I always feel the old people there. So I've done little pieces that represent the old people all the way along the river. And especially where I come from, it's a powerful place.
I love that. All right, we're gonna stalk you then. We're gonna find these.
I'm gonna have a look now.
Well, okay, what's one thing that most people don't know about you?
I love stirring up the kids with fart jokes.
We love it.
It's the height of much dad jokey stuff going on in my house, and that's embarrassingly enough, that's probably one of my favorite things to do.
Okay.
Love it.
I love that. If you had to listen to only one singer or one band for the rest of your life, who would you be listening to?
It'd have to be Merle Haggard. For me, just his era in the 60s is like my life on a tape.
Right.
And whenever I got a car that I found the tape player would work or whatever, I'd stick Merle in, and all your problems went away.
That's deadly. All right. What do you hope to be doing in 5 years from now?
Look, I'd hope to be back to normal out of COVID. I'd be back to doing what I normally do and touring. I'd like to hope that my wife will still put up with me in 5 years. It's a tough road. It's a tough road for a stubborn old gurry. but we're working through it, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
so
that's
beautiful.
Lovely. And I personally have one last question. Now that we've all been formally introduced, am I allowed to claim you as an uncle now, or because I'm going to tell people regardless?
Absolutely, I get claimed all the time, and it's just and I do a lot of claiming too. I remember when Laurie Daley first started playing for Canberra, I said, "Oh, he's my cousin." And everyone believed it because I'm not even from Canberra, you know.
I love it.
The claiming game is an open field for us. I love it.
It is. I used to claim everyone.
Yeah.
When I went to a school when they were like, I went to Greenbank State School, and we were like the only Murray family at the school at the time, and I'd just be like, "Oh yeah, Kathy Freeman, that's my cousin." Like, you know, everyone was my cousin. Yeah, I met her.
She's Murray. She's Murray, and she's from Queensland, so she qualifies.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me I'm wrong. Prove it.
That's so funny. Well, it was even harder for me because I really am related to Kathy Freeman, and no one would believe me. So
there you go. And I did a fanboy thing up there as well, AJ. I saw her. She came to the last Midnight Oil show.
Oh wow!
And Neil Murray from Warumpi Band was there as well. And I went over to Neil. I said, "Brother, I'm going to stalk this one for a photo."
You got no shame.
You know, I went over there and did the photo thing, and she goes, "Troy, I should be getting a photo with you." I said, "No. I said, I don't think so, Sissy." I said, just line up for me. I said, my family going to love this.
Legendary. Two legends. Love it. Fantastic. And I guess, Troy, our final question would be, we're going to have lots of listeners in from different backgrounds all over the country. What would your final bit of advice or remarks when listening into your album, or even listening into, this new chapter of your life and finding inspiration, what would your advice be to them embarking on this new journey?
Look, I really have a lot of high hopes for our country, Australia. And I have to say, I've sat with my uncles, and they, in their lifetime, have felt a shift in people's thinking. And I got big feelings in my heart when I heard that from my uncles, because, they're people that have been through a lot more than our generation. And we'll go through a lot more in our generation than what our kids will. And we've got to pass on the good stuff as well as the sad truths. So if we can open up people's minds at dinner tables when they leave their politics at the door and just come in as human beings, I think we've got a chance in Australia. I've seen what happened in America. We all watched that from a distance, and obviously, Ginny, you would have been in the heart of it there. Just watching that incredible, angry stuff that goes on, the mistreatment of black people, just the way that the politics has ruled people's minds, and they've never taken people as people. They take them as what party they barrack for.
Yes.
And I just hope that Australia never falls into the left-right thing. I think Australia's got a chance. And I've felt a shift in my lifetime. In my 50 years, I have felt a shift. And if we can just keep opening up conversations at our dinner tables, whoever. I met all the people at the polling booth here when we voted local. And I talked to the One Nation fella the same as I talked to the Liberal and the Labor fella. You don't talk politics, they're just people. That's all they
So
are.
true. So
Leave
true.
the politics at the door, come in and have a feed, come to my fire. We had young campers come to our fire and young white fellas sit at our fire and they walk away and they go, those black fellas are all right.
Yeah.
So true.
So true.
Took one conversation,
That's it. Plant those seeds.
Plant the seeds. That's right.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's us. Thank you so much for coming and being interviewed for our podcast. It's an absolute honor. And I guess our final remark to you would be thank you for continuing to produce music and, give hope and inspiration, not just to black fellas, but everyone that calls this country home, but also globally as well. And, putting Australia on the map and reminding them the talent that we've got over here.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to say thank you. This has been one of the most beautiful laid back yarns I've had in ages, and I just wish people could be this laid back when even when I was trying to get the Zoom to work, I looked at the name of the podcast and I thought this is going to be easy. I'm just sitting there waiting till I get that link. Once I get the link, I'll be right. And normally I'm stressed out, but no, this has been very, very nice. And I just want to say thank you for your generation too, for opening up minds and hearts. That's your job now. You are going to be the next gen who's carrying it with you. Ginny's going to be doing it in the States. Whoever she runs into will be the way they perceive Indigenous people when they talk to her. And that needs to be, first point of contact will be Ginny. AJ, you'll be running into people down the street when you go down the street for a coffee. It's how you take people that makes a difference.
It is. Wow.
Yeah.
That was definitely profound.
I
Thank you so much. Thank you.
No worries at all. So thanks for the yarn and keep spreading the word, you girls. I love it.
For sure.
We will. Have a deadly week and we'll we'll be sure to keep in contact.
No worries. Take care.
Awesome.
Thank
you too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that was deadly.
Lovely.
Oh my God. Dead.
Well, we are sure you guys enjoyed that episode of this amazing yarn with Troy and have taken away so much. I know I have, just from hearing this man feel comfortable and confident enough to speak about his artistry, his life, and, his future goals and aspirations has really encouraged me, to stay focused on what I want to achieve with my line of work and even my personal life as well, like reflecting on the impacts of COVID on other people's livelihoods as well and, their line of work. But thank you so much for tuning in. And what's your thoughts, Ginny? Let us know. How are you feeling?
It was such a special interview. I will never forget this moment. I think this is a pretty major for us, but like how deadly is here. And, we do touch on how hard it is, I think, for Black men in our community. And this is a man who's really putting it all out there. Like you can tell in this album, he really is, speaking from the heart. And I really, what I love the most is how he touched on with black fellas, like the sadder songs the better. And I was like, that's so true. Every song that any of my uncles have ever loved are always the really, really sad ones. And I think as well, like he's really poured his heart out in this and he feels as though this is probably the most personal. I mean, it is the most personal album out. And I just want to encourage everyone now, like, as soon as you jump off this, please, please, please go and stream his album. It's called The World Today. He's also just recently released his first single, which is Back on Country. We did yarn about it in the interview. It's on YouTube. Even if you just go and run that and watch it. Like, let's get behind these black folk.
Share it on your socials, guys. Share the video link around. All the song. Let people know.
This is such an important conversation, and the fact that he felt, like you said, Adrian, comfortable and confident enough to come and yarn with us. Like, we need to get behind this fella. But anyway, you all heard it here first. Troy Cassar Daley is our uncle. He is Uncle Troy to us, and we are claiming him But yeah, thanks for having us and thanks for joining us.
Yes. Thank you guys. Yet again, another episode down. We'll be back next week. And thank you for your continued support.
Love ya.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Unapologetically Black. Be sure to follow us on our Instagram at unapologeticallyblack. You'll find our merch, contact details, and content in the link tree of our Instagram bio. In the meantime, please share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. As Black creators, we're incredibly grateful for your support. Big love, take care, and yarn next week.